Hey everybody, this is Perch. I suspect this one may, I don't know, I definitely going to get some of you upset about this video. So I apologize, I guess, um, which means I probably don't really apologize. No, but no, I do apologize, but because I don't like to intentionally agonize anybody. But I want to ask a question, and I'd like for you to figure out kind of what's the honest answer. Nobody knows who you are. You're not using your real name, most of you not anyway, in the comments. So, go ahead and just let's be honest. And the answer may be never. So I'm about to say, and no judgment. So I did a live stream. I haven't done one in a long, long time. Not my own. I was on a guest on my arch enemy Wes, who's banned me from his show. Anyway, I was on that show, and I don't know why it keeps coming up, but at one point somebody makes a comment about heroes in crisis, and they're talking about there's a recent interview with Tom King talking about heroes in crisis, so it makes sense. There's a recent interview where this whole thing was coming up. I think heroes in crisis was a poorly conceived story with a lot of problems. But the basic simplest one is it reduced more than added, and it kind of got wrapped up in the kind of general misunderstanding that comic fans want to get torture porn, basically comics. And I think that there was a time where there were people who wanted that, where that was kind of a popular thing to do. People have argued that Watchmen is torture porn. I don't think it is, but people have argued it's kind of this dark, depressing kind of thing. And things go in cycles. Once upon a time, Winger was a semi-popular band. Clearly not anymore. So things come and go. So I think there was a misunderstanding of who would be interested in that comic. But there are lots of other problems with it too. Anyway, during the course of this thing, and like I said, would this have come up? The answer is probably yes. But it came up in this show for a reason, for a reasonable reason, because Tom King did an interview and was talking about his feelings on the comic. So he brought it back into a topic of discussion. During the course of that discussion, though, and this is my question for you, some of the people in the chat and a couple of people on the panel, but thankfully not that we didn't go down this thing too far. They started talking about Bendis and how Bendis ruined Superboy and how Bendis did such a bad job with Superman and all the rest. And my thought that I had was, how long does this go for? I'm not saying that people should, after a couple of years, just magically like everything. I think you can still dislike it, and I still maintain the thing with Jon Kent. Forget all the recent stuff about whether he's bisexual or not. By the way, people in the comments who are like, he's not bisexual. They're calling him bisexual, but they're never going to have him date somebody of the opposite sex. I hear you. You don't have to make that point every single time. but again, regardless. Forget about all that stuff. We're focusing just on Bendis' thing. I think they left a ton of money on the table when they aged up Jon Kent. That, to me, is the big problem with that move, is that he was there as a kid. There was a lot they could do with, kid Jon Kent. And I think they had a lot of mileage to run off that. But instead, they took money off the table for themselves by aging him up and going this new direction where he's kind of, they're doing the better Superman, the Superman who cares about the things that Superman doesn't care about, which I think is a hard thing to try and push. They've been trying to kind of say that, well, Jon Kent's going to fight for, different things. He's going to fight for, the environment. Adult Superman doesn't care about the environment, but kid Superman's more tuned in. He cares about the environment. And I'm like, I don't know. I think that's a pretty dumb one to try and. I think if you're trying to do a story where you're trying to make a case that Dad Superman, grown-up Superman, where he doesn't care about today's most important things, I think you're in trouble as a writer. I think you're gonna have a really hard time landing that plane. Because Superman, one of the difficult things about Superman, you could argue, is that he's too perfect. He always does the right thing. So if you're trying to make a story of well, Superman doesn't give a shit about Black Lives Matter. I'm pretty sure Superman, if he sees police brutality, he's going to be upset at the police. I'm pretty sure about that because he has for a long time, and in the comics, they've written stories about exactly that, way before George Floyd. So I just think if your point is that the young Superman's going to be more tuned into the real issues, ah, yeah, I don't think so. I think that's a losing proposition as a writer. But anyway, um, so as the argument continued, people were really wanting to kind of go into Bendis, how much Bendis screwed up the character, and I had this brief thought of 10 years from now. I mean, hopefully I'm dead, but 10 years from now, are we going to be like, tuning into live streams where people are talking about how much Bendis ruined Jon Kent? Because that's kind of depressing, if so. So my question to all of you is, when do we stop giving a shit about that? And when I say stop giving a shit about it, I don't mean accept it. I don't mean like it. I don't mean forget it ever happened and move on. I just mean it's no longer an interesting topic of discussion anymore. It's no longer an interesting argument. By the way, this isn't against Watch the Show or anything. This comes up on Twitter. There isn't a week that goes by that somebody once started a thread about, Bendis's horrific run on Superman. And, I didn't like his run. I didn't enjoy it. I think it was, what's funny is it appears to have clearly tanked Bendis as a writer. And I mean, consider this. He's doing stuff at Dark Horse now, but Bendis came into DC red hot. I mean, he had a lot of momentum. And now, there's some thought he might go back to Marvel. Maybe DC pays him, but the amount of money that DC with Didio signed him for, and kind of he was basically said, do you want Batman or Superman? And he had his pick. We wound up getting Tom King on Batman. If you think about it, he was at the top of his game, and compare that to today. He's fallen. He's fallen hard. As a writer, he's not like people are not talking about him. Now he could do a couple good books and come back, and this isn't diminishing his skill. And over the years, he has done a lot of high selling things and everything else. But in terms of a hot property that comic publishers are going to fight over, those Superman kind of killed it. It kind of popped that balloon. I mean, arguably the Civil War II event was a dud, and kind of his run on Iron Man wasn't seen as a huge success either, and the Guardians run kind of didn't really go anywhere. So I mean, there were several things. His time at Marvel was definitely showing some age, so showing that wasn't he wasn't going to make it, but not that he wasn't going to make it, but just the star had fallen from the guy who basically sat over every major Marvel book, did the work of the Avengers, did Secret Invasion, Dark Reign. They had handed Bendis anything he wanted. He was the master. I mean, they did books about, I write the most amazing comic books by Bendis. I mean, he was the guy, and in 10 short years, we're done with that. But for fans, I mean, at what point does Bendis wrecked Jon Kent stop hurting? Right? I mean, what is the question I want to ask here? Is it that people accept and move on? It's not that. It's when do we stop caring about Bendis right now? And I will do it on this video. I'll do some catchy tagline like Bendis Nightmare, Jon Kent Revisited, or something like that. And it will get a lot of hits. It will get a lot of hits because people are still. It's still raw for people. They are still invested in wherever that thing is going. But why? Why? And more importantly, are we going to have this moment 10 years from now where we tune in and we're going to be talking about Vita Ayala is a bitch and Bendis is ruined Jon Kent and everything else? I mean. It's not this. Again, I mean it. No judgment. If I'm going to have to believe that the people who keep bringing that up are still feeling some kind of raw pain about this whole thing, still frustrated by it. But I don't want to be stuck in 2015 forever. Do you? 2015, 2019. I don't want to be stuck in. I feel like maybe that era was so bad that we're trapped there. Like we've got to. Maybe that's the way to look at it. We've got to figure out a way out of that era because we're stuck in it. We cannot escape it, no matter how hard we try. No matter what comics come out, the gravity, the sucking black hole of death that is that period of time in comics has just got people trapped that we can't escape. We cannot escape. We're desperate to get away, but we cannot escape that black hole of suck. And no matter how hard we try, but we've got to, because otherwise, we're all in it. It's not just comics. All of us are in a state of arrested development, worrying about Max Bemis doing some shit on Moon Knight, and some people, you may misinterpret this video and say, Perch tell us all to just forget about it. It's no big deal. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what is it going to take to erase this moment? So, I'm not even asking for positivity. So we start talking about new things that suck. Was the Bendis black hole of suck with Jon Kent so shitty that we are trapped? It's the kryptonite around our necks. We cannot get that fucking green rock off, no matter how hard we try. Anyway, something to think about. I'm just curious. Again, no judgment. If you're coming in here thinking you need to defend your dislike, you do not. That is not what I'm asking at all. You don't need to defend that was a lousy move. I'm with you. It was a lousy move. You don't need to defend if you're still angry about it. My question is, when can we stop being angry, or when can we stop worrying about it as much as we do? Better yet, maybe the more positive version. What great thing is going to have to happen? Is it as simple as, somebody will come up with this, de-age Jon Kent? I don't think that would work, to be honest. Regardless of the continuity issues, I'm not going to de-age him or anything else. And somebody pointed out that if they de-age Jon Kent, then suddenly we just get a whole barrage of people saying that DC was encouraging groomers with kid stuff. But I don't think it would work. I think the sting is still too bad. Even if they de-aged him, people would still be going, hey, he's de-aged, that's good. All the comics are great. But remember that time that he was older? And God damn it, idiot Bendis. I think that de-aging him would not escape us from that black hole of suck. But you let me know. Anyway, like and subscribe, yeah, and thanks for listening.